Hello, welcome to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 223 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 79 of A Storm of Swords. That's Jon 12.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes that provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing all right. Better than you, I think.
I'm having a bit of a day, but it's going to get better now because now we're doing this. It's going to cheer me up. So yeah, technical problems leading up to this, which were deeply frustrating and forced me to go and walk 200 yards outside when It is as cold as it ever gets in North Carolina. It is very, very cold out there.
And you took me with you.
I did take you with me. I thought you'd want to see what was going on. So how many of my neighbours' Wi-Fi I'm connected to as I leapt from one to the next.
Yeah, you'd freeze, then you'd come back. Then you'd freeze, then you'd come back.
So what's going on? The reason for the walk around is because I left my headphones up at my neighbours who were dog sitting for again. We've done this recently. Remember, I told stories of my dog sitting. Well, this time I'm not dog sitting. Lucas is dog sitting. Okay, except Lucas has got school and the dogs keep you awake at night. So he's like, "Dad, could you do the overnight part of it?" I'm like,
"Yeah." Isn't that the part you get specifically paid for?
Exactly. So I went up there and I was there last night, but I had an early meeting. I had to be in work at 7:30 this morning. So I left early and I dropped the keys off in our mailbox. And I texted Carson and Lucas to say the keys are in our mailbox.
Uh-huh. Okay. With you.
When I got home from work at around 4 p.m., Carson was like, "Oh, it's a mad scene up there." Lucas didn't go over there till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so they'd been unattended since 7 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
They'd torn apart a plant. They'd peed all over the carpets. They'd trampled the dirt from the plant all over the house.
Oh, no. I got a glimpse of the dogs. They're not little. They're not my penny-sized dogs.
No, they're big dogs.
Yeah, they could do some damage.
Yeah. I didn't look at the house while we were there because I couldn't face it. But I'm like, I'm not telling them. When they get back, you're explaining to them how their house got destroyed, not me.
What was he stuck in class, or did he just forget to go over?
He is an unbelievable procrastinator.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Like, for instance, when I said, "Hey, Lucas, can you just run up and get my headphones?" And then 30 minutes later, I walked up there and got the headphones. That was rather typical of the way he behaves. So probably he was home at they get lunch. They have a lunch thing, which was presumably like noon. They would get lunch. And he wanders up there at 3 o'clock to disaster area. It's like, you brought this on yourself.
Yeah.
Kids.
Well, that's how you learn, right? That's how kids learn. They do that enough times, they start to think, if I am a little more proactive, these issues won't keep happening. And that's how you grow, I guess. I guess. Well, we're here now. We're here together, you and me and all our closest friends, listeners.
Yeah. I should, if I don't think the owners of the dog listen to the podcast, but the friends of them do. So if the house gets tidied up to the point where they don't know this happened, then I swear you all to silence. Do not tell them.
Yes. Well, I alluded while we were waiting to fix all these technical issues that Molly had another milestone for you to get excited about.
Her first 7th Wednesday of high school.
She's had now I think it's 3 Wednesdays in 2024. So no, she finished her first semester of her senior year. So,
does that not happen at the breaks?
No, this is finals week, but as a senior, she has all A's, so she is exempt from finals.
Do not cannot be bothered to understand the American education system.
Well, yeah, you don't need to anymore.
Yeah.
Lucas is through it, so.
But schools were on delay this morning because it was so cold here.
Yes, right.
But I was just telling you that we have a colleague at work from Alaska, and he snorts derision at our closing schools and delaying schools for 20 Fahrenheit, like -9 Celsius.
For him, that's a heat wave.
Exactly. That's nothing.
Yeah. So we're on the back half of our senior year, and then, likely we'll be empty nesters come this summer. And I don't know what we'll do with our time.
Is she going to go somewhere?
Yes. She's waiting to hear back from 2 schools still. She's gotten into, so far, all the schools that she's heard back from, so that's good. Her number one choice is still out there. Have not heard back yet.
Is it in state, or is she going far away?
Her number one choice is in state.
Right.
Her number 2 choice is out of state, which she did get into, but unless she gets some sort of really serious scholarship, which she's right on the cusp. As far as, grade point average and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Ethan was just saying today that he thinks she should do it and just, rack up the debt. He said, "It's good debt, Dad. It's the only debt that's good debt." And I said, "I disagree. I feel that there is no good debt. There's only bad debt and less bad debt."
Yes, it is less bad debt, but it is bad debt. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yes. I just can't justify spending that kind of money for out-of-state tuition without
the flip side is pushing it all onto her makes it her problem,
Yes, right. Yes. Ethan wanted to go so badly go to Pitt for his undergrad, and I would have loved for him to go to Pitt, but I could not justify an 18 to 22-year-old going into $200,000 in debt just to get an undergraduate degree from a state school,
Can I reiterate? Do not, will not, cannot be bothered to try to understand the American education system. It is crazy.
Yeah, and we attended a housing conference call yesterday for her number 2 choice, the out-of-state one, and we were looking at prices, and the traditional dorm style dorms where you've got 2 people sleep in a room. And there's a shower and sink and toilets and everything in a communal bathroom down the hall. Those actually aren't too bad price-wise. But Molly, being bougie as she is, only wants apartment style, or I think what they call pod style. She has no interest in traditional style dorms. And I was like, well, that's why this is so expensive. Because all these kids need to have their own bedrooms and their own bathrooms and all the amenities of home when you don't need it.
That's interesting because I never got into a dorm. I got put into a university-owned house in my freshman year, or the equivalent of my freshman year. And It was fine. I had a great time, but I always felt I missed out because the dorms, you have instantaneous 400 friends,
Yes, and the guy from the housing call, the guy from the university that was leading the call said, "I know these don't seem ideal, but you need to make friends. And this is how you make friends. If you live in an apartment style, you're pretty confined. You don't need to get out and mingle. You don't need to go out into the common areas. You've got your own living room and your own bathroom. This is how you meet people, and that's what you're going to want to do when you get here." So, anyway.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I feel like we're just talking now, and we should probably get down to business.
Yeah, we probably should, yes.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get down to business. How did we leave Jon Snow? Last time we saw Jon, he was being offered Winterfell by King Stannis. Since then, unbeknownst to him, his name was being put forward as a possible Lord Commander of the Night's Watch by Sam the Schemer.
Oh, I like that name, Sam the Schemer.
Yeah, you got to have an alliterative nickname for Sam, the Slayer, the Schemer.
Right.
All right, Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
All right. Well, Jon practices in the yard with Iron Emmett, an Eastwatch man known for his fighting prowess. Most days it's an even battle, but Jon hasn't been sleeping due to his uncertainty regarding King Stannis' offer, so today he's taking blow after blow from Emmett. When one particularly savage cut from Emmett's sword catches Jon in the temple, he staggers and his vision goes blurry.
I can vouch for this, by the way. Sleep is so important to your performance in physical things. I mean, like,
Oh, sure.
good
Yeah,
night's sleep, I win
absolutely.
tennis. Bad night's sleep, I lose tennis. It's perfect correlation.
Yep.
So suddenly, after the whack on the head, Jon is a child back at Winterfell, practicing in the yard with Robb. He recalls that the boys always called out the names of famous knights that they were channeling during their sparring. On this morning, Jon called out that he was Lord of Winterfell, as he'd done many times in the past. However, this time, Robb responded that he can't be. Robb's lady mother says Jon could never be Lord of Winterfell. He's a bastard.
The next thing Jon realizes, he's being pulled off of Emmett by 2 men. Jon apologizes, but Emmett says now he knows how Qhorin Halfhand must have felt. Jon's had enough. He storms out of the yard. As he walks, he thinks of the offer from the king to make him Jon Stark, Lord of Winterfell and his father's true heir. But it's Lady Catelyn's face that he sees. She has the usual look she saved for Jon, one that says, "Who are you? This is not your place. Why are you here?"
Jon ends up at the bathhouse. As he soaks, Winterfell returns to his mind. Surely his father and his brother would want him to restore Winterfell. But then he pictures the weirwood tree at the heart of the Godswood and envisions feeding it to Melisandre's fire god. Suddenly Jon hears voices. It's Alistair Thorne and Bowen Marsh trying to convince Othel Yarwick to pull himself from the Lord Commander voting and ask his supporters to back Janos Slynt. When Warwick says that King Stannis didn't have much good to say about Slynt, Thorne reports that if they let Stannis choose their Lord Commander, they are the King's bannermen in all but name.
So you would say Yorick instead of Yarwick, just like Chiswick instead of Chiswick, I guess?
Well, as a British person, yes, but...
Okay. Yes. I remember us having this conversation about Chiswick, so I realized you said it for Yorick, too. I always pronounce it Yarwick. So.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
What about Roy de Treese?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've heard him say it probably 5 times this week, and I can't tell you how he says it. Anyway, Bowen Marsh chimes in that Tywin Lannister also supports Slynt for the job. He said as much in a letter. When Jon sloshes water, the men realize he's there. Jon leaves them to their plotting and meanders his way to the northern side of the wall. Jon considers the facts. If he stays in the Night's Watch, he's likely to be hanged as a traitor by Slynt. However, if he takes King Stannis' offer, he'll become Lord of Winterfell, marry the comely Val, and hopefully have children of his own. Well, when he puts it that way...
Sounds rather pleasant, yes.
Not so bad.
Yes. His mind's eye pictures him and Val and their children, while also raising Gilly's boy and Mance's son together as brothers. They'll even find a place for Gilly at Winterfell, and Sam can come visit her when he can. Jon realizes he wants it. He always has. It's a hunger inside him. It's prey like a deer. He needs to hunt and kill. His mouth begins to water. That doesn't sound like Jon.
It doesn't. Where is this going? Jon bolts to his feet, realizing what's happening. He turns toward the wood, and there's Ghost, padding toward him. When Jon calls, the wolf breaks into a run and tackles Jon. The pair wrestle for a bit before Jon notices Ghost's red eyes. He's of the old gods. Jon remembers that Ghost was the only all-white pup of his litter, white like snow.
Jon feels that he has his answer. He and Ghost walk through the castle to dinner with his brothers. Chaos reigns among his brothers. No one is eating. Instead, men are shouting, banging on tables, standing on tables with swords drawn. Jon discovers that the fuss is over Dolorous Edd nominating Jon Snow for Lord Commander. Slynt shouts that Jon should be killed for treason and for being a warg.
Thorne announces that before they vote, Awful Yarwick has something to say. Nope, I already said it wrong.
It doesn't matter.
Again.
It's fine.
Yorick, is that how you say it? Yorick? Like Chisholm,
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
That's how Yorick tells his brothers he's withdrawing from consideration. He planned to support Slynt, but now he's not sure why. So just vote for whoever you want. With that, Sam and Clytus prepare the voting kettle. When they open the lid, a huge raven flies out of the kettle and lands on Jon, saying, "Snow, Snow. Sam says it's Mormont's raven, but Thorne says it's a trick of Sam's, that Sam taught all the ravens to say Snow. Mormont's raven knew more words. The raven changes his tune to its customary corn, followed by kettle, and with that, they vote.
Jon wins in a landslide. He's surrounded by brothers congratulating him. Cotter Pike, Sir Dennis Mallister tell him not to make them regret this. Mallister adds that Jon comes from a long line of great men. He expects the same from Jon. The new Lord Commander leaves the hall with his friends. Gren tells Jon it was Sam's doing. Sam doesn't deny it, but does claim to have had nothing to do with the Raven surprise. Jon takes a drink of wine to celebrate, but only one. He has a king to see.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to be a pleasant conversation, I'm betting.
No, but I mean, he is Ned Stark's son, so he's probably had conversations like that before, you know. when he's done something wrong, he probably
right.
got the cold treatment from Ned too. So what I found interesting, the thing I found interesting about the first part of this, I mean, I found many things interesting in this chapter because I find things interesting about this book. That's why we do a podcast about this interesting book.
It is. It would be really weird if we did a podcast about a book we didn't find interesting.
Is how much pent-up rage Jon has about his treatment by Catelyn.
Yeah.
It feels like he was always aware of it, but he let it sort of like just slough off him, like it didn't matter to him. Water off a duck's back. But here he is blindly beating a fierce fighter half to death just because he started thinking about it.
Yeah, you're right. You know, the beginning of this chapter made me feel a certain way about Cat, but I hadn't thought about how, Jon, he's never really shown this side of him regarding how he feels about his treatment by Cat.
Yeah, and it could, of course, be sort of like a cause and effect thing. Stannis has replanted the seed of you could be Lord of Winterfell, and so the mistreatment in the past has come back now. But
sure,
still, it definitely feels like he had more understandable resentment towards Catelyn than he's let on, but definitely there.
Yeah, this part of the chapter just reintroduces my distaste for Cat in her treatment of Jon. Her vitriol for him is really tough for me to take. We've said it before when we've discussed this, that if she wants to be mad at someone, turn to her Lord husband.
Yeah.
You know, I know it was a different time. Women didn't have the agency to show such emotions to their husband, but for goodness sake, let the kid live his life. He's the one innocent in all of this.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting what you said about agency. I mean, it does feel like she bit her tongue about it. I mean, we know that she bit her tongue about asking questions about it because Ned did not like it when she did ask questions. We know that.
Yes, true.
But I don't think she hid her feelings about Jon from Ned very much. I think he was acutely aware of how she felt about Jon. And so she felt at least sufficiently empowered to do that, to be as mean as she wanted to in front of Jon, in front of Ned.
Right, yeah. You know, I'd always wondered, and I think I've brought it up before, that if her hatred for Jon stemmed as much from what he represents as what kind of person he is.
Well, I agree. 100% agree. I mean, that he is the manifestation of the betrayal. That's the thing. The betrayal is the thing that hurts her. There's an overlay of potential rival for the throne of Winterfell to my own children. But it's the betrayal that hurt her so much, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think if he were just your typical little brat kid, she might have felt less threatened. And his memories in this chapter kind of back that up a bit when he remembers that she'd get upset whenever Jon would best Robb at anything. And the fact that Jon was a good, smart, capable young man probably irked her even more.
If he'd been like Theon Greyjoy,
Right.
She could have disliked him like everybody else disliked him and been perfectly justified in that. But she had this inherent dislike she could not escape, and it stood out to everyone because everybody else liked Jon because he was a good kid.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, and I think the fact that he was a good kid also further irked her because he was competition for Robb in a lot of ways. Now, never to be Lord of Winterfell, but
she would repeatedly tell him about it.
Yes, in the practice yard when he would beat Robb, she'd get upset. And with Sums, if he bested Robb, she'd get upset. I think she was a bit jealous of the fact that Jon was a fairly capable young man.
Yeah. So we see that Stannis' offer is taking a toll on Jon. He's not sleeping. He's racked with indecision and self-doubt. And that's how we sort of join the chapter. But during the course of the first part of the chapter, he comes to a realization that Stannis has stoked a fire that's always burned. He wants this.
It's all he ever... Yeah. He thinks that's all he's ever wanted, right? I mean, that's what he comes to the final conclusion of. But he worries about the cost. And let's just take this cost piece by piece. First of all, surely one of the pieces is his Night's Watch vow, right? And surely many of his brothers would understand, forgive, be proud. Not all of them, but I think it's not like he's leaving the Night's Watch, if he were to accept this, to just go be Jon Stark and roam Westeros.
Right.
He's being elevated to Lord of Winterfell and surely in Stannis' mind, Warden of the North. I mean,
right.
Who could blame him for, forsaking his vow for that?
Who doesn't already hate him could blame him. Yeah.
Yes. So some like Thorne and Slint will use this to back their case for him being a turncloak and a craven and an oath breaker and all that. But there's another issue, I think, that I don't know if he is considering it. I don't know if he specifically mentions it, but he should be thinking it. And it is something that not Slint. It was something that Thorne brought up, is that, he needs to consider the stability of Stannis' claim as king, right? If Stannis dies or loses his crown, does the decree still hold, or does he have to tuck his tail between his legs and go back to Castle Black again?
Well, that is an interesting thought. So go through the thought experiment. He takes them upon this. He goes back to Winterfell. He raises banners, presumably to help Stannis. It'd be a bit of a betrayal if he didn't help Stannis at that point.
Right.
But Stannis loses. If Jon Stark bends the knee to the victor, let's say the victor is Tommen Baratheon. Sorry.
Right.
Oh, no, I did get his last name right. I was thinking I got his last name wrong. Usually I put a Tommen Lannister joke in there, but I actually accidentally got it right. He bends his knee to him. Tommen might actually be... Well, it'd be good to have a Stark in Winterfell, honestly.
Yeah.
Those Boltons are nutcases.
Well, that's the problem, right? They've already elevated the Boltons to
but they've elevated the Boltons to a vacant seat. If Jon were to be in Winterfell and secure in Winterfell, it might be hard or it might be tempting to accept a bent knee from a Stark who becomes the Lord of Winterfell again.
Yeah.
He could survive it, I'm saying he could survive it if Stannis were to fail.
He could. And if... I can't ever imagine a situation where Stannis bends the knee. But if Stannis bends the knee...
Yeah, Jon could bend the kney after Stannis is defeated, yeah.
Yes, I was thinking if Stannis bent the knee, that could be one of the concessions, I guess, is that I probably wouldn't matter to Stannis at that point what happens to Jon. But
yes, correct.
But he's also struggling mightily over whether he's worthy of being Lord of Winterfell, wondering how his family would feel, especially focusing on his father and Robb. But little does he know that Robb had already made him his own heir.
Oh, right.
So, Robb considers him worthy of more than just Lord of Winterfell. Robb considers him worthy of his heir as king in the north. So
it's a good observation, right? Which something that presumably he can never know because that message got lost, right?
Well, I think it's floating around with Mage Mormont, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay, so it could reach his ears at some point. Interesting.
It could, yeah. And can I just say that Robb is an amazing young man in many ways, because despite the absolute inevitable poison that his mother was surely dripping into his ears over the years about Jon, he rejected it and made his own decision about the type of person that he felt like Jon was. It would be easy to go the Sansa route. And
I hear you, but this is Robb Stark who sent Theon Greyjoy to Pike, right?
Okay, so his judgment comes and goes.
No, it just seems to be very, very Catholic. Like, everybody's good. I'm going to trust everyone.
Yeah, he is the one who did that, and who married Jane Westerling.
And I will say, his ability to say no to his mother was entirely exacerbated by her freeing Jaime Lannister. That made life a lot easier for Robb for the days when he wanted to do the opposite of what she wanted.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, I was sort of weighing up the pros and cons of this, and to me the pros were sort of overwhelming. Be a Stark, rebuild Winterfell, keep the name going. Val, have children of your own, a home for Gillian the baby, a home for Mance's baby, get out of the cold. I mean, what's not to like? The only country considerations are the one you've raised about what happens if Stannis fails, the vow, which, I mean, the king is going to release you from the vow. Go with it. The heart tree, the heart tree having to be cut down in favor of R'hllor. I think it's something you can kick down the road a little bit. Once you're Lord of Winterfell, then you can say, you know what, that's an ancestral tree. We're keeping that. You can burn some other trees.
Right. Yeah. There is a bit of an issue with, okay, he's raised, let's play this out. He's raised to Lord of Winterfell, and now he is forced to take on R'hllor as his god. And Stannis and Melisandre want him to call the Northern Banners to rally around Jon so that they will support Stannis. But, the old gods aren't taken lightly there in the north.
No.
And he's already Jon Snow turned into Jon Stark. It's not like it's Robb that's doing this. I just wonder how much that will hurt his credibility if he's like, oh, no, but the thing is this. Those old gods we've worshipped for tens of thousands of years? Forget them.
Yeah. The new gods have had, 300 plus years to get into the north. And how have they done? Not well. But now a new god is coming from Essos, no less, and is going to supplant the old gods. I don't think so. And I think Stannis and Melisandre should realize that. They should be like, hey, we need the men.
Yeah, get the men.
Their faith will follow.
Right. When the others are approaching the wall in mass, they'll probably become disciples of R'hllor real quick at that point.
Disciples of whoever will save me right now. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, but you put all those really great things on one side of the scale. On the other side of the scale is stay in the Night's Watch. Likely Jaina Slynt gets elected as Lord Commander, and you're hanging at the end of a noose. So,
you paint an unfortunate picture of that side of the scale.
Yeah, so definitely solid reasons to take Stannis' offer. It's not like at this point in the story he has any inkling that he is going to become Lord Commander.
Right. So finally, he concludes what he should conclude, what we're encouraging him to conclude. He's going to take the offer. And he takes just a little stroll north of the wall like you do when you've got such a weighty consideration to make. And who should jump out of the woods but bloody Ghost? So the thing is, I've been missing Ghost for chapter after chapter after chapter. He's arrived at the most inconvenient moment because he's going to change Jon's mind. Just one look at them. He's like a living heart tree. He's white with red eyes. Just at the moment when I think, I'm just going to betray all the old gods, here comes a living old god.
Yep. Yeah. If he had just showed up tomorrow, maybe.
Exactly.
What's one more day? But yeah, it's the red eyes and the white fur that caused Jon to go in the other direction. He thinks the eyes look like, they remind him of a werewood, and clearly Ghost is of the old gods. And it is hard to picture Jon ditching the old gods, embracing R'hllor, but managing to retain a connection with Ghost. So
yes, but Jon Snow needs to be more adaptable, less Ned Stark, less Stannis Baratheon.
Right.
Roll with this.
Yes, so there's some gray area.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it caused me to wonder, how do the old gods fit into the battle with the others? It feels like they should play some sort of role, being the gods of the children of the forest and giants.
Yeah, there's the whole gods don't exist aspect, which perhaps means that they're not going to do anything. Just a thought here.
Well,
just because people believe in them doesn't mean they're real.
Yes, and their power isn't as direct as we've seen from the Lord of Light, but they have shown some signs of existence and help when needed. Bran alerting Jon of the wildling force and Ghost being attacked by the eagle through that dream that they shared. Just the ability to warg in general feels like something of an old god situation. And the three-eyed crow training Bran, we don't know what's causing all these things, but some people tend to believe it is the old gods.
Yeah.
So... But the other bit is Ghost's fur being white. So all the other littermates had dark colored fur, and
so you
there
think
was
this
one
is
white
a
one.
Token reminder of Jon's difference?
Yes, that he is not a Stark. No matter what Stannis says or does, he is a Snow, not a Stark. And I guess he figures this must be how the old gods intended it to be.
Yeah. So before he goes out to the north of the wall, he takes a bath and he overhears the sort of plotting between Alistair Thorne, Bowen Marsh, and Othel Yarwick. There's not much to be said there. Not entirely surprisingly, Thorne is trying to convince Yarwick to vote for Slint. But coming back to the point that you made last week, it is a little bit strange that Bowen Marsh would still be Team Slint after what he heard in Stannis' chambers.
Yeah, and Yarwick says as much. He says, well, Stannis didn't have much nice to say about Slint, and Marsh heard that as well. He was in the room.
Right.
But I feel like Thorne and Marsh were contradicting themselves in the things that they were saying. Thorne says you shouldn't be dissuaded from Slint just because Stannis said so. If we let Stannis pick our Lord Commander, we're as good as being his bannerman and all but in name. Yeah. And then he says, but the Lannisters will win this fight ultimately, and they support Slint, so we should choose him, which is exactly what he was trying to imply not to let Stannis do. So,
but I mean, yeah, yes, you're very right. That is completely contradictory, but it also makes a certain amount of sense. I mean, it's a pretty good bet that the Lannisters are going to win versus Stannis, and therefore you do want your Lord Commander to have a good relationship with the Lannisters because they're going to be the kings of the realm, and therefore your future wealth and comfort will be in their hands.
Yeah, although I mean, Thorne wasn't in the room, but Stannis literally said, I don't care who you pick. Even if you pick Slint, I will stomach it.
Yeah.
Just pick somebody. So, again, he's not even being completely accurate with his facts. But Tywin didn't send a single soldier in response, unlike Stannis, who
Yeah.
rode in himself. Now, he had other reasons for coming in. It wasn't just to win this battle for them, but, Anyway, I just thought it was a bit contradicting.
Yeah, and I will
whole
say,
thing.
you said in the summary, you said that Jon leaves them to his plotting, but Jon is actually pretty outspoken when he gets out of the bath. He says, "I'll leave you to your plotting," which is kind of
Right.
pretty bold of a 16-year-old to say to the people who are choosing the next Lord Commander.
That it is. It is.
So after the reunion with Ghost, the scene moves back to the dining room where it turns out that the vote is going. And Jon is obviously paying very little attention to the voting for Lord Commander. He didn't even know it was happening. He blunders into it. But they say that the doors are being locked until they come up with a new Lord Commander, right? That Stannis' men are going to keep them in there. They're not even allowed to eat. And that's why things are pretty tense when he arrives. There's swords drawn, etc.
Right.
Just point of order, actually. Does everybody in the Night's Watch get a vote?
Yeah.
So is everyone in that kitchen? Is it in that dining room?
Everyone who's present, remember, you can vote as proxy for people who are out in the way.
That's what I've forgotten about. There are proxy votes. Okay. So my question about this was, so it wasn't Sam that put forward Jon as a candidate. It was Dolorous Ed. Now,
Right.
Ed makes it sound like he was just sort of like, rather you than me sort of thing, trying to get his own name out of there. But did he and Sam have a plan?
His response was very Ed-like. Better you than me.
Right.
It was a terrible thing to do to a friend, but better you than me. I think the short answer to your question is, he must have been after the fact. I don't think he and Sam had this plan going into talking last chapter to Cotter Pike and Sir Dennis Mallister. But I think in as much as Sam said to Ed, I want you to put Jon Snow's name forward.
Okay. So you don't think it was just a random coincidence? Okay. I wondered what you thought about that.
Yes.
I'm inclined to agree that it would have felt. Plus, if Sam had done it, it would have seemed more like a plot. With Ed doing it, especially Mallister and Pike, neither of whom would know that Ed and Sam were friends, they might not have seen the connection,
Yes. If it had been Gren or Sam or Pip, it would have been much more. I don't know, a little. Well, anyone, as I think as Sir Dennis says, any brother is allowed to put another brother forward as long as they've both said their vows. So,
right.
Friend or not, I guess Sam just figured it'd be better if it wasn't Sam, because Sam, there's a lot of people that
he might stutter and we might never know who he was putting forward.
Yes.
So in the run-up to the vote, there's a bit of spine from Othel Yarwick, which is extremely well-timed, because if he'd put his weight behind Slint, it might have gone differently. But he finally, despite the pressure he was getting from Marsh and Thorne in advance, he tells his followers to vote for whoever they feel like.
Yeah, and that probably wasn't easy for him. Jon thinks to himself, that Yarrick doesn't have the greatest, the strongest convictions, and that even Lord Commander Mormont knew that. So, it probably wasn't easy to stand up there and speak his own mind.
Although telling people to do what they want, it actually speaks to not having strong convictions in some ways.
That is true. Yes, it does kind of fall right into that, now that I think about it.
Do we think that Sam had anything to do with Mormont's Raven? I mean, if Sam is planting the seed with Mallister and Pike, he's dripping tips into Ed's ear for how he can get out of it. Is he also hiding ravens in the kettle?
Yeah, he says he doesn't, and he doesn't have any reason to lie at that point when he's
No, because
asked.
it is all friends, yeah.
Yeah, it's just his friends around. But, okay, let's say Sam's telling the truth. Then how in the world did the raven get into the kettle? It had to have had human help. Otherwise, the bird removed the lid enough to get in and then replaced the lid and sat there and waited until it was finally open again. So I guess it's possible. Could have been dark. Someone didn't notice a black bird sitting inside of a likely black kettle and just put the lid on it. But, if I'm thinking of who might have done it that's not Sam, the first thought that comes to mind is Maester Aemon. Did he have Clytus do it?
Because course he owns the ravens.
He does. And yes, and he said last chapter, which was the Sam chapter, that it is not appropriate as a chained maester for him to be seen meddling in the voting for Lord Commander. But that doesn't mean he couldn't subtly do some things behind the scenes that might help.
And much of it was in the bird's hands. The bird could have done whatever he wanted to. Yes. He could have landed on Slint's shoulder and said, Slint, Slint, for all we know,
Yeah.
But it was unbelievably convenient for Jon. I mean, you think about what happened. Just as the vote starts, the bird of the murdered predecessor landed on the candidate's shoulder and shouted his name over and over again.
Uh-huh.
That's a big omen right there. It'd be hard not to spot that one as an omen. Plus, it's also... Did you ever see the movie Minority Report?
Yes, I've seen it. I don't really remember much about it.
There was a scene where they never investigate murders because they always prevent them. Yeah, that's the basic premise of the movie.
Oh, yes, I do recall that.
There is a murder, and none of the cops have ever investigated a murder before, apart from this one outside cop who says, "This that you're seeing here is what we would call an orgy of evidence." And he said, "In all my time investigating murders, I've never seen one before. This isn't real. This is a plant, And I was reminded of that as I read this, as I saw the bird shouting, "Snow, snow, snow," just before the vote. I was like, all right.
Yeah, that is a fantastic marketing campaign. It is one that any campaign manager would just applaud.
Exactly. I mean, it's not even Mormont himself, who some people might not like. It's Mormont's pet. It's like,
right.
Everyone can get behind the White House dog, apart from the current one who bites everyone, of course.
And I'll say Mormont's raven seems to know what to say at the right time.
Exactly.
Because when Jon was fighting the White and trying to save Jeor Mormont, the raven was squawking "burn" with no prompting. It's not like someone said "burn" and the raven was repeating "burn, burn." He just shouted or squawked "burn," and here he is saying "snow," which we pointed out is a fantastic marketing campaign. And yes, it's true. Sam did teach all the common ravens to say "snow."
Yes,
but then he goes on and says, corn, like he always does, and kettle, and later he says supper. So
and later still he says, "Slint is corrupt. Don't vote for him."
Yes. Yeah,
he's quite the bird.
He's disappeared though. The bird, last we saw the bird, I think, was at Craster's when Mormont died.
Okay,
and we had not seen nor heard of him since. But birds have been trickling back because remember Sam let all the birds out without any messages.
Yeah,
way back on the fist. So, but when we get to the spoiler section for our top sustainer tiers, we will discuss there is a supernatural power with a connection to the Night's Watch that has been conjectured has some connection to this.
Look forward to it. So Jon wins in a landslide, as we know, and he's Lord Snow. There we are. And as we said, we both had a little bit of fondness for Ballister and Pike last time because they seemed to be true to their word that they only didn't want the other guy. They didn't actually want it for themselves. And they were both incredibly gracious, particularly Ballister was incredibly gracious in stepping down and wishing Jon the best.
Yes. Now, one thing that was a little confusing to me the first time I read this part, it said something like, once the voting started, the rest was arrowheads, drowning out stones and shells and copper pennies and something along those lines. That is, so when they vote, they take a token that represents a person that they want to vote for, and they drop that in. So it surely seems that Jon's token was arrowheads. And that's why all the random talk about arrowheads came out of nowhere.
I was puzzled slightly too, but I was like, okay, they must have one for each person, yeah.
Yes. So, but yes, like you were saying, Dennis Mallister, I've always been told the person who doesn't want to lead often makes the best leader. And, because they're not leading for an ego trip or to fulfill some desire. They're leading for the best of the group.
Yeah.
So, here we got Dennis Mallister, who clearly steps aside when he sees a better candidate who would probably have made a great leader for that reason alone. And we've got Jon, who showed no interest in wanting to be a leader. So, maybe that'll mean
either of those would have been a worker.
Yeah. But, both Cotter Pike and Dennis Mallister tell him, don't make me regret this. And we know something they don't know. We know what Stannis has in mind. And Jon has told Stannis he agrees with the wildling population plan for the gift.
Oh, that's right.
How are these brothers going to react when his first order of business as Lord Commander is, let them all through?
Right, let through the people who tried to get through and we all died stopping from happening.
Yes.
Interesting.
Is that going to cause them to say, I asked you, please don't make me regret this, and the first thing you do is make me regret this.
I'm going to kill that raven. But just one last thing. Jon's friends are a good bunch, Pip and Gren and Ed and Sam, join him for a drink and celebrate, and they're a good bunch.
Yeah. That was the fun part, but now he's got to break this to Stannis. I wonder if Stannis will get the news first.
Yeah.
Or if Jon's going to have to be the one that breaks it to him. But at least he's got a better case for rejecting the offer now. He was going to do it with no competing offer as Lord Commander.
Right.
So
when all he had to look forward to was the noose. No, I choose the noose. Thanks, Stannis, but no. Noose for me.
Yeah, I kind of was thinking that. Like, okay, you decide not to take Stannis' offer. Don't say anything just yet. Let the pieces fall as they're going to. Then you might want to reconsider if it's Jaina Slint.
It felt like Jon didn't even know what was going on with the Lord Commander vote. He was so blissfully unaware. I mean, he said Slint was going to win it, but he was like not paying any attention.
True.
Okay, so now a brief interlude for our upper level sustainers while we talk spoilers. All right, do you have some background for us?
Just a little bit. So, Jon, as we've mentioned, Jon overhears Alistair Thorne and Bowen Marsh trying to convince Othel Yarick, see, I got it that time, to withdraw his name for Lord Commander and back Slint. And when the time comes, Othel does withdraw for consideration, but does not back Slint. So, here's what very little I can tell you about House Yarick. The house is a Westerland house, and their sigil is 2 bronze halberds crossed. Halberds are basically pole arms with an axe head and a spike at the end.
Oh, yeah, okay.
With 4 red diamonds interspersed between the X that the crossed halberds make.
Yeah. In the north, south, east, and west quadrants that are created.
Yes, exactly. That's all on a white field. And Othel is the only named Yarick in A Song of Ice and Fire. No histories or general info on the house or its people that I can provide, unfortunately.
Wow, you've got it in for your ancestors if you join the Night's Watch when you're the last one.
That's right. I'm ending this house with me.
As a comparison with the television show, Sam doesn't make a plan in advance of the vote, so none of the discussions with Mallister or Pike happen in the TV show. So the last 2 chapters are rolled into a single scene at the vote. Slint and Thorne's roles are switched. Slint is the one promoting Alistair Thorne.
Which makes some sense.
It does make quite a bit of sense. But the other way around makes some sense too. But it does. It's strange that Thorne would support Slint. It's less strange that Slint would support Thorne, but it's strange that Thorne would support Slint. Just because Slint was head of the Gold Cloaks, he knows nothing about running the Night's Watch.
Yeah. And he's been there for about a hot minute.
Exactly. The Mallister and Pike are just turned into Mallister. But Sam stands up and lays waste to Slint in particular. talking about his behavior while the battle at Castle Black was happening, when he went hiding in the closet with Gilly and the baby, and Sam found him in a puddle of his own making, he describes it. So Slint is apoplectic about all this, but Sam is on a roll and very funny. Then he makes an impassioned plea for Jon, using many of the words from the book. The vote is, so you're talking about the arrowheads and the shells, whatever, going into the thing. The vote is done by different shaped icons which fit over poles. So there's like round ones, square ones, triangular ones. And they slide them over separate poles, so the highest stack wins, yeah? At the end, Thorne and Jon Snow are tied, and they're like, oh, it's a tie. And then Maester Aemon takes out his thing and slides it onto Jon Snow's pole.
He breaks the tie.
He does. So that's
cleverly done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When Sam is giving his speech, does it feel a bit out of character at all for him to be speaking so forcefully in a large group like that?
The TV character Sam always had a bit more chutzpah than the book character Sam. But yeah, I mean, he's. I once gave an after dinner speech. Sam was way better than I was. And I don't feel myself to be a nervous person like Sam is. So,
no,
yeah,
I agree.
A little bit out of character, yes, for sure.
Okay.
So Pedantry Corner, you predicted this one last week. How could Bowen Marsh, after hearing what Stannis said about Janos Slynt, still seriously consider him for a Lord Commander role? It is a character decision, but those accusations had a truthiness to them, and they're absolutely scandalous. I mean, what he did was he took bribes and then murdered those who accused him of it.
Yeah, that's bad. You don't want that person being the Lord Commander of anything you're associated with.
Exactly. Even if you don't believe every word Stannis has said, he just sounded like he was telling the truth. So, yes. I don't know. That stuck with me as I read this chapter.
Yeah. And like you said, it's a character decision, so we can't technically call it pedantry, but it is a good place to put that because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, this one is minor, but perhaps more on point for pedantry, okay? When Jon goes north of the wall, he mentions that the wildlings are being kept there behind a fence and ditch, I believe it was.
Yes.
If there's 100,000 of them, that is an awful lot of fence and ditch. I mean, that is an earthworks to rival the wall itself. To keep.
I saw that and thought the same thing, and I went back and looked it up. I probably should have told you this earlier. So what Stannis tells Jon about the battle is something along the lines of, I killed 1,000 wildlings, I took 1,000 more captive, and I scattered the rest. So according to Stannis, there's only 1,000 in there, which is still a pretty big group to keep captive outdoors.
But that's manageable. I mean, 100,000 is like, it's quite a large city, and you're going to build a earthworks around it. That's going to take. Yeah. Plus, where are they going? They want to get over the wall. You know,
right?
The only wall you need to put around them is the one that's already in place. Really, so,
right?
Yes. Okay. I take it back. I back off that pedantry. So to news and notes.
Well, D&D have been handed the keys to another very important story to us. And when I say us, I mean specifically you and me, but also...
And by D&D, you mean Benioff and Weiss, yes?
Yes. Dan Weiss and David Benioff have been hired as showrunners for the Three Body Problem show on Netflix. The show will be based off of the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, of which the Three Body Problem is the first book. The story centers around the concept of Earth making its first contact with aliens, for those of you who do not know. But D&D have brought along several members of the Game of Thrones world to join them in this new venture. The list includes none other than John Bradley, Sam Tarley, who we were just talking about in comparison with the TV show, Liam Cunningham, who played Davos Seaworth, so Shoe Queen will be very excited about that. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Pryce, who plays a character we haven't met yet, named the High Sparrow, but we will meet him at some point.
Also,
then,
Prince Philip in later seasons of The Crown.
Okay, good to know. Yes, all right.
He's a terrific actor, Jonathan Pryce.
All right, yeah, he is. He really is, yep. As well as Raymond Djawadi and Bernadette Caulfield, Game of Thrones composer and executive producer, respectively. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So none of those people seems particularly Chinese to me. So,
I had that same thought.
Yeah, so I guess it's being transplanted to the US, which will be very interesting, I feel, because, or at least to the West, because the book is very Chinese. I mean, a lot of the story of that book is the story of China. So to transplant it is quite the undertaking.
Yeah, that's true. That will be something to keep an eye on, how they make that adjustment. We're just conjecturing this based off of these handful of characters.
There are some Western characters, so maybe these are just the Western characters that fit in. Maybe the rest of the cast is all going to be Chinese, but it strikes me that they're going to try something else, and it will be interesting to see if they can pull it off, because that is such a major deviation for such an important part of the book. I still think it could be a terrific show if they do it, but I think it'll be a high wire act to make that happen.
Yeah, well, we know how good David and Dan are when they go off script. I mean, what could possibly go wrong here? But I will say this book is so important to us that Simon actually put together an outline for a podcast about that book series. You did the whole first
It's ready to
episode.
Go. It's ready to go.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know. I'm actually currently reading it again, would you believe?
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That's cool.
It's a great book. We have a sustainer call next week. This week, for those who are listening. It's for all levels of sustainers with the video chat perk. So we'll be welcoming our Knights of the Realm, our landed knights, along with the usual Royal Kingsguard, Lords Paramount, and Small Council sustainers. We are looking forward to it. Hope it'll be a nice big crowd.
Yes, hopefully it will. It's always fun. We always enjoy those. So
yeah, we do. That's too big of an audience for me to sing to, though. I'll get performance anxiety with that many people.
You'll wait till there's 3 seconds left in the call, like always. And maybe our newest Buy Me a Coffee sustainer will join us. George C. has joined the Landed Knights level, so a huge thank you for that, and we look forward to interacting with you possibly as early as, well, next week for us right now, and this week for those who are listening.
Yeah, thank you, George. We appreciate it. Look forward to meeting you. All right, let's conclude this one. Ghost is back. Hooray. Jon might need him. He's not made any new enemies, but he's certainly cemented the ones he already had.
Yes.
And his next step will be to definitely make an enemy of Stannis and presumably make some brand new enemies within the Night's Watch as well.
Yes. Because at least as far as Stannis has said, the first plan of order will be, okay, let's let them through. Open up the gate. So that probably won't go well. But yeah, he's young. Jon's young, and you and I have talked a lot about the fact that Jon has moments where he acts like a young man. He can get petulant, and he usually needs some sort of older figure to come by and remind him of what an ass he's being, and then he snaps out of it and does the right thing ultimately in the end. Well, he can still have a council. He's Lord Commander now. He can still take counsel from people. Maybe maybe he'll still have bouts of being a teenage boy and need someone to snap him out of it.
Is he the 998th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch?
He is. Yes,
you know what?
Is.
If he did still take Stannis' offer, then the next in line would be the 999th, and then I wouldn't want to be the 999th because everybody would want me to die.
Just to get to even 1,000.
Exactly.
But yeah, like you're saying,
you know what?
Though,
Dennis Mallister is perfect for it. Connor Pike will be like, "Yep, let him take that one."
I'll follow him. No worries.
Exactly.
You take it, Dennis. Olive branch from me to you. You take this one. But yeah, you alluded to it. Jon's got some enemies, and he's certainly going to make more. But how are Slynt and Thorne going to handle this? Will they continue to make trouble for the new Lord Commander? Or are they going to fall in line because Jon now is the new Lord Commander?
I have some hopes for Alistair Thorne. I really do. Because Alistair Thorne, I think, is a true brother of the Night's Watch. And he'll do his duty. I have no hopes whatsoever for Janos Slynt. He is a slimy toad.
Yeah.
And probably because the two of them are together, they'll both end up in the Slynt camp.
Okay. I could see that. Yeah, I could definitely see
that.
Of
course, Jon could move them somewhere. You know?
Yeah.
Perhaps have Slynt be in charge of relocating the wildlings to the Gift. Might be kind of a good job, you know. Get him out of Castle Black. Get him away from Thorne.
There's a lot of things that need to be done now that, once everyone finds out about this new plan, there's going to be a lot of...
New jobs to be made. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So next up, we have Sansa. Oh, you said she might be called something else these days? It's been so long, I've forgotten.
We could call her Sansa, or we could call her Elaine Stone. That is her new name given to her by Peter Baelish, if you recall. As
Peter Baelish's... bastard
natural-born daughter.
No, his daughter. Okay,
right. Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah. She is. I'll just tell you, she's in the Eyrie now, and she gets an unwanted kiss from an unlikely source.
I think just about anyone.
Yeah. Unless Loras Tyrell shows up.
Yes, that'd be okay. Yeah. She's the last named chapter of this book, right?
She is.
Wow.
She's the last named chapter.
Almost there. How about that?
Yep.
Excitement. All right, there's 4 ways that you could help us. You could leave us a positive review. You could buy merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. Become a sustainer at one of the various levels, just as George C. did. Or you can make a donation directly to us at our website, ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, you can always check us out on our social medias. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.